And the saying goes, when two or more minds are gathered together, it just creates that third mind, that universal mind that comes into play and gives the entities just an empowered vision, an empowered potential to increase their capacity of just conjuring great thoughts and great ideas, and that's what the forum is all about. And we welcome, all our guests and of course our family members as well. So with that, we're going to get this call started. This is Billionaire Joe here, and I'm off to a business meeting, but just want to welcome everyone and turn the call over to our awesome co-host, Dr. Billionaire Toni Hatton. Toni, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Billionaire Joe. Great day, Billionaire family. I'm excited to be with you this morning. We send our prayers and support out to Dr. Richmond. I know he was getting some extra rest this morning because he worked so hard. So I just want to, chime in and just share some of my thoughts, some of my morning thoughts. I'm a deep thinker. I'm always thinking, about the next thing, always getting the download. And I just want to, when I got the call this morning from Dr. Richmond, I said, okay, I'll just share some thoughts, So if you have pen and paper handy, you definitely want to take notes because some of the insights, I'm a vision expert, and with the ability to, shift the perception. When you shift your perception, you shift everything about your life. You begin to create a new reality. So I'm going to share some information about, for example, this past weekend, I was hanging out with my kids, and they wanted to see The Avengers. And I'm sitting there in the movie theater. I don't watch movies like, common people do, average people, just watching the movie to be watching it. I always get something from it. And there was a certain part, it was like, not too far, into the movie, they were talking about this entity, this being thing. At first I was kind of confused. These kinds of movies these kids watching, all these superheroes and things, sometimes I can't follow. But I was kind of lost in the beginning, and then all of a sudden I heard a voice say, because they were talking to like a computer voice, I heard a voice say, I am a computer. Hold on one second. I think Lady Tycoon says we need to record. Give me 1 second.
To start conference recording, press 1. To return to the conference, press star. This conference is being recorded.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Lady Tycoon. So, again, I was sharing information about today's broadcast, the Billionaire Mastermind Forum. So I'm just going to share some morning thoughts. I went to the movies with my kids this weekend, and we went to see The Avengers. And in the beginning of the movie, I wasn't quite following, but I heard a voice say, they were talking to like some kind of computer voice. And I heard the voice say, they were inquiring about who they were, who this thing was, and where was it, like, who are you? And I heard the voice say, I am everywhere, I am without form. And immediately the image came back to me about in the beginning, when it said the earth was dark, it was void, it was without form, it was without shape. So I ran home and I started looking it up. Of course, we read, the scriptures, and I've read the same scriptures down through the years. But every time, and if you visit my Facebook page, I posted it on there, that the word is alive. It'll meet you exactly where you are. That same scripture that you've read for years, if you read it now, being that you're different than when you first read it, it'll meet you exactly where you are. So I ran home and I started reading through that first chapter of Genesis when it said the earth was without form. Because when I looked at this entity that they were talking to, you couldn't see it. He said, I am everywhere. I am without form. And when I started reading in Genesis, and I know, different times during the Billionaire Mastermind Forum, we reference scripture. So I just want to highlight some of the things that really stood out to me and had a great impact. When I referenced that scripture in Genesis, when it talked about, in the beginning, and that computer that I heard on the Avengers say, I am without form, it had an impact on me. And, when you think about without form, you're just thinking about something that exists that you can't see. It just doesn't have any shape or anything like that. So the earth was without form. It said the earth was without form, but the spirit And we talk about the Spirit of God, and some people call it the universe and the light and energy, whatever you might call it. It said the Spirit was hovering over the waters, just hovering. So imagine total darkness, no form, nothing, and think about this aspect through this whole talk that we're going to have this morning. Think about this aspect. Everything already existed. It just had not appeared. It hadn't been called forth. So when he said it was dark, darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit hovered over the waters, when you think about that, the earth was without form, but the Spirit was present. And then, it references that, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. And then he said, let the waters be collected into one area. And when he said that, dry land appeared. He never said, let dry land appear. He said, let the waters be collected into one area, like moved into one area. And then when he did that, the dry land came forth. And what that said to me was the dry land was already there. The water was covering it. And when I looked at that, I'm thinking about, as a vision expert, what else is in our space, at our disposal that we have access to that's already there that we need to call forth in our own lives? So when he said, let the waters be removed, I thought about that. I said, the obstacles. And I started, when he said let there, I started saying let there in my own life. And that's what I want to encourage you being a mastermind family to say. Start speaking to your own environment, to your own life. Start saying let there be. And whatever it is that you desire to exist in your own life. Because when he said, let the waters be removed, immediately, and I saw that, he said the dry land just appeared. Immediately, I thought of obstacles. Let the obstacles be removed. Because, see, if you believe everything that we're sharing, here on the Being a Mastermind Forum broadcast about abundance and that you already are and you already have everything that you desire, clearly, just like cleaning out your closet or cleaning up your room looking for your keys, that when you remove the obstacles, the keys appear. And it's the same thing in our personal lives. When we remove the clutter and the obstacles, abundance appears. We already are abundant. You don't have to go anywhere to get abundance or be abundant. We just have to start removing stuff, packing up stuff, putting it in boxes and getting rid of it. Just like if you're moving from one house to the other. You just have to start gathering stuff up. When you start gathering stuff, you think about when you're moving from one house to another, you start finding things that you never even, remembered that you had. You're like, oh, my God, I didn't know I had that. I didn't know I still had this. Well, I remember this. You start finding things. They were always there. I hope we're getting this morning, being a Mastermind family, because everything that you desire, you already have. You're already rich. There's stuff on top of your richness. You're already rich. You're already kings and queens. You're already abundant. You don't have to be any more abundant than you already are. There's stuff on top of your abundance, suppressing your abundance, hiding your abundance, tying your hands and your feet, putting a muzzle on your mouth so that you can't move forward. When you start doing your work, you'll be able to access. When you start doing your work, the muzzle will come off of your mouth, your hands will be untied, and you will set your own abundance free. So this is what this scripture was saying to me, and I got all of that from one sentence in that movie. I am everywhere, but I have no form. And then when I thought about it, it said he called the dry land earth. And you might want to take a note of that, because we are the earth. He called the dry land earth. And then he said, let the earth yield vegetation. I want you to think about that. Let the earth yield vegetation. He didn't say, let there be vegetation or, let vegetation appear. He said, let the earth yield it, meaning the vegetation was already in the earth, the environment that he had created. Everything that was supposed to live and thrive in that environment came forth out of the environment. It didn't come from anywhere else. And that's an indication that everything that you need is going to come forth out of you. That's an indication. You don't have to go anywhere to get it. We can start running and chasing and going here and there and everywhere and start sitting down and developing our own self, getting to know our own self, removing the clutter out of our own lives. Like so many speakers have, come to the Beard and Mastermind broadcast and shared about how to, just yesterday, the gentleman was saying, I believe his name was, I can't remember his name, Barrett or something like that. But he was saying about negative people, removing obstacles out of your life, the clutter, getting organized. That's all about making sure that environment that you're in, you're able to thrive in it. So he said, let the earth yield vegetation, plants yielding seed, and trees yielding fruit with seed in it, according to its own kind. So you want to write that down. That was very significant to me, according to its own kind. And then he said the sun, the moon, and the stars are signs of God's provident care. So when we see these things, they are signs, the sun, the moon, and the stars, signs of God's provident care. He said, let the waters bring forth abundantly. Look at that word, abundantly. It didn't say let the waters bring forth some fish. When you think about the ocean and you watch these movies with the ocean, you go to the aquarium or you go to the ocean or you go to, SeaWorld and you see all these fish and, every time I turn around when I go to the aquarium, I see a new fish. I'm like, my goodness, I've never even seen a fish like this before. It's endless. The number and the variety and the variations of fish in the ocean, because they came forth out of the ocean, they were called forth abundantly. Think about that. Everything about us is abundance. There's nothing small about us. There's nothing that is lack or scarcity about us. Nothing. Everything that he created, he called it forth in abundance. The birds filled the sky. These creatures came forth out of the abundance of the waters. He says everything came out of something else. That's what I got from this. Every time I turn around, I read these scriptures in the first chapter of Genesis. Everything came forth out of something else. So he says God approved everything. He blessed everything and said, be fruitful and multiply. So when I looked at that, I said, have we blessed the things that we're doing? I mean, the works of our hands are blessed. Have we blessed the products and the services and, the things that we're serving to others as entrepreneurs? Have we blessed it, or are we just trying to share it with others and have not blessed it so that it's fruitful, multiplies, and fills the earth? Think about that. So, this right here gives us an opportunity to start speaking, using the power of our words, to speak our abundance, to speak the prosperity. It's one thing to hear it and say we believe it. It's another thing to put your mouth on it, the power of your tongue on it, so that it's fruitful and multiplies. Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth. Everything was created after its own kind. But, I want you to write that down, B-U-T. But, when it came down to man, this is what he says. He said, let us make man in his own image. So everything else was created after its own kind. The birds were created after their own kind. The animals were created after their own kind. When it came down to man, he said, let us create him after our own image and likeness. Think about that. So we're created after his own kind, which is the image of God and the likeness of God. Let him have complete authority. And God blessed man and said to him, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it, meaning use all of its resources in the service of God and man, and have dominion over every living creature. Subdue it, use all of the earth's resources. Have we used all of the earth's resources? Have we used everything that's accessible to us to accomplish our purpose in the earth and to serve and add value to the lives of others? Think about that. We weren't created after the likeness of an animal or the likeness of a bird or the likeness of fish. We were created after the likeness of God. Think about that. So he said, to man I've given you every plant that yields seed and every tree with fruit that yields seed. So the seed is important. He mentioned the seed several times. You want to write that down, seed, because we're going to talk about that. He says, I've given you everything, every tree with fruit that yields seed and every plant that yields seed. This is your food. To every creature and everything that has the breath of life, I have given you every green plant for food. Think about that. Then he says, on the seventh day he rested. So how often do we take a day and rest? Think about that and be brutally honest about that. How often do we just take a day, shut it all down, and honor the work that we did? When you take a day of rest, you're honoring the work that you did. A lot of times we can heal our own selves by taking a break and taking that day of rest. That day of rest is not just to say, oh, I'm taking this day of rest, or, or I'm just going to sit here with nothing to do. Your body is rejuvenating. Your mind is rejuvenating. You're actually giving the work that you've been doing for the other 6 days, giving it an opportunity to be deeply rooted and planted and grow. Step back from it. Look at it. Like the same thing we just read in Genesis 1. He created these things. He said, let there be, and then he stepped back and looked at it and said it was good. How often do we create something and step back from it and look at it and say it's good and bless it? How often do we take a break and do that? Or are we just creating, producing, doing the same thing over and over and over, running here, running there, chasing this, chasing that, and haven't even honored the first thing that we created or blessed the second thing that we created? Step back from it. Look at it. It's just like, when you're changing your room around, and you're so satisfied with it, you turn around and you look at it before you walk out of the room. You come back, you turn the light on, and you look at it again because it looks so good. You change some things around. You feel good about that. And that's what happened, on the first day and the second day and the third day. When God created what he did in these days, he looked at it and said it was good. So can you look at what you're producing even today and stand back from it and say it was good? Say it is good and bless it and multiply it and command it to fill the earth and be fruitful. This is an awesome pattern here. Just the first chapter of Genesis is an awesome pattern that we can implement in our own lives. So when we talk about, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. The heaven and the earth was actually, the environment was created first. Think about that. The environment was created first, and then the occupants of the environment came forth out of the environment. So the environment had to be created first. Think about that. That part right there moved me because immediately I thought about, when you're preparing for a baby, a mom is pregnant, and the first thing she does, before she brings that baby home, months ahead of time, she's preparing his or her environment. That room, you can walk through the house and tell which room is the baby's room because she created an environment. Why? So that the baby can thrive, so that it can grow, so that it's safe, it's protected, it's nurtured, its creativity can be inspired. Think about that. Have we created an environment where our gifts and talents can grow, where the products and services that we offer others can grow, where our business can grow, where we can grow? Is our environment conducive to our growth, or does our environment depress us? Does our environment suppress us? Does it drain our energy? Does it put an obstacle in our creativity? Think about that. He created the environment first because out of the environment came everything that was supposed to thrive in that environment. A lot of times, we're producing things and the environment is killing it. A lot of times we're working on projects and we're creating services and, we have these awesome businesses and ideas, and it can't even live or breathe because the environment is toxic. The environment is killing the dream. Think about that. So you have, along with a fantastic idea or a dynamite business or a six-figure this or a six-figure that, you have to have the six-figure dynamite fantastic environment in which it can grow. If the environment is not rich, the dream can die. If the environment is not rich, the idea can die. It won't have momentum. You won't be inspired to get up and work on it and nurture it and develop it. Environment is everything. And a lot of times we put that off and say, oh, well, it's okay. Oh, okay, I could deal with this. Or, oh, it's just something. I'll just move this to the side. But when you think about environment, if you look at your environment and you feel a certain way, or pay attention to what you shake your head at, or what you say, or pay attention to what you ignore. Pay attention to what you look over or step over top of just to make it, just to get by, or just to function. Those are the types of things, because a lot of times we say, well, I don't know what's in my environment that needs to be changed or moved or fixed or, spruced up. Pay attention to what you shake your head at. That's what we talk about when we talk about environment. Sometimes it's subtle and we don't know, what it is that needs to be changed. But deep down inside, we know what frustrates us or what disappoints us or what causes us to, cringe. So out of the environment came everything that was necessary. And what I got from that, only certain things can come from certain environments. Only certain things can grow in certain environments. You can have a dynamite idea. You can have a multi-billion-dollar idea. If the environment is not conducive for it to grow, it will not grow. That's how powerful that is. So before the earth could yield fruit, this is what the scripture says. Before the earth could even yield its fruit, it needed rain and it needed a man to till the ground. Think about that. The environment was present, but there was no man to till the ground. So, because there was no man to till the ground, yet again, I see it right here in the scriptures, yet again, rain hadn't taken place yet, and there was no man to till the ground, so mist and fog came up from the environment, came right up from the ground and watered the ground. It watered itself. Think about that. Remember we talked about seed. Everything that you need is in you. It hadn't even rained yet, so the garden needed to be watered, so because it hadn't rained yet, mist and fog came from the same environment that needed that. As a speaker, a lot of times, when I first started speaking, people would come up to me and say things, and it would shock me because, I didn't understand that, as a speaker, you're feeding people, but you're feeding people, you're not eating what they're eating. Let me put it that way. You're not eating what they're eating, so you don't know how it tastes. Think about that. The chef that serves the food is serving it. You're benefiting from something she served. Of course, she tastes it back, in the kitchen, or sometimes some chefs don't, They're just that good. They don't have to. But as a speaker, people come to me and say different things, and I had to learn to eat what I was feeding others. That's what happens. See, we have to understand we're the vessel. When in your business as an entrepreneur, you're serving others. And in order for you to benefit from it, you have to serve yourself first. And it comes up from out of you. The very same thing that you're serving others and telling them, buy my product and service, it's going to do this for you and do that for you. Is it doing it for you? Did you be the first part? Are you the first partaker of it? Think about that, because the very thing that feeds others should also be feeding you. It came up from out of you. So mist and fog watered the ground, and then he says, again, the ground yielded what it needed within itself, the mist. Here's a great part right here. Then God formed man from the dust of the earth. Remember we talked about earth, how the dry land just appeared. So it says, then God formed, there's that word formed again, formed man. So man was formless. He already existed because the earth existed, and man came from the earth. Now God formed man, and he breathed into him the spirit of life, that same spirit that was hovering over the waters in the beginning. That same spirit. He breathed the spirit of life into him, and man became a living soul. Where did man come from? He already existed in the earth. He didn't have form. So God planted a garden. Here comes the environment. And placed the man that he had formed right there in the garden. So the man came from the environment that God placed him in. I hope we're getting this. I hope we're getting the fact that we are already all that we will ever need to be in this life. You really, really are. You really already are simply amazing and endless and abundant. Our job is to remove the clutter so that we can shine and spring forth, and so the abundance can fill the earth and be fruitful and multiply. That's our job. That's what we're in the process of doing. We're not in the process of being rich. You're already rich. You're already rich. There's something holding your richness back. If you feel as though you're not expressing or experiencing your full abundance, then we have to remove some more clutter. So one of the things that I read, towards the end of this chapter says, a river flowed out of Eden to water it. Look at that. Again, a river flowed out of the environment to water the environment. So within the environment was the ability to water itself. It says a river flowed out of Eden to water Eden. And then that river split into 4 rivers. Think about that. That's where that multiple streams of income comes in at. We should have multiple streams. There's so much that I got from this. Another thought that I had as I was reading Genesis chapter 1 about how God created man first. He created the earth. He created everything that, the earth needed. He created the garden. He placed man in the garden. And he realized it wasn't good for man to be alone. Man came out of the earth, so if it's not good for man to be alone, where is he going to get a woman? He had to go inside man and pull out the woman. Everything was in seed form. Everything was already within itself. I hope we're getting this. Everything that you need is already in you. You have to call it forth. So one of the other things that I got from this was a woman didn't even come on the scene until everything was already laid out. Everything was already there. All of her needs were already met. She just came on the scene to help the man manifest, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, subdue it, use all its resources in service of God and man. Everything was. That's one of the reasons why women get frustrated when their needs aren't met, because when she was created, all of her needs were already met. Everything she needed was already there. Think about that. So when he said it's not good for man to be alone, and then he said, I'm going to create a helper for him. So he created woman. He caused Adam to go into a deep sleep and pull the woman out of him. And then how are generations created? How do we multiply? How do we cover the earth? Again, in seed form, women give birth to children. It's already in her. Everything comes forth out of us. Everything comes forth out of us. Everything we need is already in there. It comes forth out of us. So that was my take. I know it was a lot. That's what happens to me when I go to a movie, right? And I go see something or hear something. And again, that one statement brought forth all of that. Everything you just heard me share came forth out of one statement. Everything we need or have access to or operate or function under in this lifetime is in seed form. We are the man to till the ground. We have to nurture it and water it and develop it so that it can grow. So my question is, what is locked up inside of you, being a mastermind family? What resource have you not tapped into yet that's already inside of you? What abundance have you not accessed yet? Think about that. So I'm going to open up the lines. I definitely would love to hear your takeaways this morning.
Unmuted.
Can you hear me?
No, we can hear you. Go ahead and speak.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
can you
this
hear me
was
now?
a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful recording. You know, for so many years, you have so much in you, and you're told you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do the other. But I am in the process of calling forth those things that are not as though they were, because they are already in me. I am slated to be a speaker, and I wrote my first book, and I'm in the thing of getting it published now. But there are so many obstacles, so many things. So this is what you're talking is true to life. So I really have to really stand back, look at it, and speak to it, because it is already in me. So I'm calling those things that are not because they are.